Thanks, man.
No, it's cool. I'm gonna have to start with that one because we're lining up at the moment. But as soon as you get it, that would be awesome. Yeah. I know. I gotta. Yeah. Anyway, you can just. Yeah, of course. I told you I don't go. Thank you, man. Okay, great. Yeah.
This atmosphere is great for preaching. You can't see them when you're preaching to.
Can't see a thing out there.
Yeah.
It is really bright.
Here, she must be used to this thing.
Yeah, this is the stage I've rocked on many occasions. Yeah. Where'd Shay go?
She just stepped
Thank
by.
you so much, gentlemen. If we could get Shay Ramirez to the stage, we will get started in just one moment here. Everybody, there's still time to submit questions. Heather Cook over at the side there. The Mayor Up hashtag is always available for you to submit questions.
He does have a twin brother.
Because he said he was Jonah, Mike.
Yeah, you're not Jonah. No. They're identical twins. Yeah.
And they both have an amazing smile.
It confuses a lot of people.
But he's like, I'm Jonah, I'm like, no, you're not. I know who you are, man. You're like, no, I am the twin.
Yeah. They're great.
Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate this great turnout. I'm going to not trip Shay with a microphone cord here. It is a big last step. Be careful. Got it? Brilliant. All righty. Thank you, whoever cut the lights. And welcome, everyone. Namaste, shalom, bienvenidos, assalamu alaikum. Welcome. I hope I got all of those right. But welcome indeed to all of you. And thank you. Welcome to all of the candidates. And thank you for coming to our first forum here on policing at the Pinhook. I'd like to thank my partner, Heather Cook, who helped me put all of this together. She is over there with the questions on the side. We're honored. Heather, round of applause for Heather, of course. The Clarion Content is very happy to be doing this, but we could not be doing it without the help of a whole bunch of other people, including the Pinhook, Ponysaurus, where our next forum will be on September 27th. Yeah, round of applause for the Pinhook, always, since forever, right? That's correct. Yes, and Ponysaurus, where our next one will be on the 27th. The Rick House, where we will see you October 4th. Also sponsoring include the 21C, the Durham Hotel, the St. James Seafood Group, Urban Durham Realty, Carolina Partners in Mental Health, and of course Justin Laidlaw is over there working the Mayor Up hashtag for us of Runaway Clothes. See Justin for all the answers about what's on that Mayor Up hashtag after the show. And we are encouraging the candidates, please, we know many of you use social media, to check out that Mayor Up hashtag after the show for comments from the public, from the people's questions. So I was a policy debater in college, and we are going to be giving some people some very strict time limits. That's our timekeeper, Meredith Martindale, over there of Picture Durham. Thank you so much for helping out, Meredith. To the candidates, yes, thank you. Applause for Meredith. We are going to keep the time limit strict, and that we understand that giving a candidate 1 minute to speak on an issue is not really an opportunity to make a policy brief. And we're not asking the candidates to make policy briefs here tonight. Specifically, in the context of this topic, we're thinking about people taking stands and telling us where they stand on the issues. At the Clarion Content, that is the biggest feedback we've heard from the Durham public, is that they want to know where the candidates stand. So Meredith and I will harshly cut you off at the 1 minute time limit for each question, only giving you one extra sentence at most to speak. Same for the 3 minute opening statements from each candidate. However, we expect that you're not going to tell us all of your policy in that minute. You're going to take a stand. And that's what we'd like all of you people to do as well, to take a stand. It is certainly a time in American politics where it's clear that we need to participate, we need to be activists. It is true on the national scale, it is true on the Durham scale. The purpose of this forum is to encourage you to turn out, participate civically, both through your questions tonight and your willingness to vote at the primary election and in the final election. Heather Cook over there has information about early voting about voting locations, about dates, times, deadlines, how to get an absentee ballot. We can help you. The internet can help you. We have things you can take pictures of so you can go home and look at it later for a picture on your phone. So please find a way to participate. Thank you all for coming. Thank you so much to the candidates for coming. I'm going to turn it over to them to opening statements. So thank you all. And I believe we will just go left to right across stage. So Farad Ali, you would be first. You're welcome to spin that mic in your direction or have the mic over here. Either way, we should be fine. And as audience members, when you fill out these cards about questions, it will say on the bottom, do you want to come down and ask your question up front here, or would you like me to read it for you? And in very Durham style, we will be collaborating to pass the card questions forward from Heather to the timer Meredith, who will run them over here to me. So we will make it happen. Thank you again for coming. Thank you to the candidates. Farad Ali, it's all yours on policing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. All right, this is going to be exciting tonight. So, and thank you, the Pinhook and Clarion and Content and all the candidates for being here for today. And today we're talking about policing and wanted to kind of give an overall view. So I'm Farad Ali, running for mayor, as you all know. And the subject around policing is important because we understand that policing has a history of, in our community particularly, of being a group of people that we feel like we're not connected to. One of the things I want to remind our citizens is that the police department is also part of our departments inside the city, that they also get everything they have comes from your tax dollars, from their uniforms, the cars they drive, the gas they have, and all of the training that they get is paid for by the citizens. So it's really important that we understand that the citizens are a part of the police process and that it's not them against us, but it's more around how we all need to work better together. The police we've seen over years it's been tough in communities of color. We've seen police, and when you look at the statistics, that African Americans particularly get pulled probably faster and have more issues around crime of lower level drugs or involved with police pullover or even in crimes when you even get shot. And so there's a real issue of distrust there in communities, particularly as communities of color and communities of need. And how do we start really repairing those, building a trust relationship? So having more community policing, not having drive-by shootings or drive-by police, but really having times when they get out their car and meet the people. So we have our chance now with this election, and also I believe with our current police chief, C.J. Davis, around really building on our community policing model, where the police can continue to get more incorporated in the community. They get to be involved with the cops. I'm sorry that we lost a great program, which was really around a 17 curriculum source of opportunity to teach kids around the importance of what police can do in the community. So as we continue this conversation to look and understand that the police is a part of our department, we the taxpayers source them, build them, train them, and how do we work better with them as we continue to build the Durham community? Thank you.
Clap.
Thank you so much. Yes, clap for each of the candidates. You don't have to clap after the answer to every single question because, like the Oscars, it will take longer if we do that, but you're welcome to clap after the opening statements. Councilman Steve Stool.
Please clap after my opening statement. I just want to say that Pierce and I were talking a minute ago, and I was saying how bright the lights were, and he says he's rocked this stage many times. I have not rocked this stage many times, but I anticipate doing so tonight. I very much appreciate being here. Thank you to the Pinhook, the Clarion Content, and to the other sponsors. I'm very grateful to be here. The big question in front of Durham is, will the city we love be a city for all? And this issue tonight is a subset of that question. We know that how we police is critically important to that. We need policing in a way that no one in Durham lives in fear of violence. No one in Durham lives in fear. And we need to make sure that the kind of policing we have is that kind of policing. It's hard to think about this vision of Durham without thinking about what Durham would be like without policing, because I hear a lot about Durham beyond policing, and I think that's a really important vision. What that means, I think, is Durham beyond policing is when everybody's got a good job, when everybody's got a good education, when everybody's got a great house to live in that's warm, when everybody's got a really good school to go to and has good health care, then I think we'll be at the place where we can really think about Durham beyond policing. And we need to work to get to that, to attack those root causes. But we need policing now. We're not in that situation. So what kind of policing do we need? We need policing that does two things: that effectively fights violent crime, and at the same time is never discriminatory, never racially profiles, and that never involves institutional racism that we know has been part of the history of our police department. And I hope we can talk about that some specifically tonight. And then the other thing I want to say is this: every 2 days in Durham, someone is shot with a gun. Not shot at, actually shot. Mostly wounded, sometimes killed. And these shootings are mostly in communities of color. And I hear two things from the people who live in these communities. They want us to do both. They want us to have effective policing that will help us battle this violent crime, and they want us to do it in a way that's not discriminatory. So that needs to be our goal, and I think we can. I ride along with our young police officers. I've done it several times in my time on city council, and I see them do something I couldn't do, which is they run towards danger. It's very hard work. We need to support them in this work, and we need to hold them strictly accountable for the standards that we have in terms of our policing. You may have noticed that I'm the one person on this stage that is white. Thank you. Here's my one sentence, and I'll tell you more about that later.
Thank you very much. Pierce Freelon.
Thank you. Thank you, Clarion Content, Pinhook. Once again, we're here with me rocking the mic. I'm Pierce Freelon. I'm running for mayor here in Durham, and I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for holding the space for us. I want to start with saying that in this discussion is really about public safety, and I want to distinguish between policing and public safety. They're not the same thing. And this was best illustrated to me by a community organizer here in Durham named Mama Nia. Anybody know Mama Nia? Okay, so Mama Nia and a brother named Umar Muhammad, who tragically passed away in an accident a couple weeks ago. He was part of a group called All of Us or None. Part of a collective called Spirit House that talk about public safety in this way. They say, close your eyes. I'm gonna get everybody to do this. If everyone in the room could just close your eyes. Let's take a deep breath together. Now I want you to imagine and picture in your mind what it feels to be safe. All right, imagine safety. Let's take another deep breath together. All right, open up your eyes. Can anybody tell me what that safe space was for them? Anybody at all?
Mama's arms.
Mama's arms, okay. Trees. Okay, I'll start with those two, Mama's arms and trees. So nobody said Durham Police Department or any police officer. So I think that really illustrates for me the extent to which policing and public safety are different things. And those safe spaces, whether it's Mama's arms or trees, that really speaks to having a job, having access to employment, clean and well-furnished schools, safe and non-threatening streets, employment that makes use of our talents but does not degrade your dignity. That's quoting Maya Angelou. These are the things that make us safe. And the biggest threat to public safety is poverty. Poverty is the biggest threat to public safety. And if we want to address public safety in our community, we need to address poverty, which is the root cause. Crime is a symptom of a disease that is poverty, which is, by the way, a man-made disease. Poverty is a policy choice. And if you look at the money that we're investing in police in Durham, $61 million in the police department, $71 million for a new police station, that's a collective, if we were putting that much money into eliminating poverty, we would not have the public safety problems that we have in Durham right now. So I think, sure, you can clap before I'm even done. Thank you. So check it out. Everyone should, because I don't have time to go through all the details, my campaign staff is in the back. They should have a sheet. Ending money bail, which is not something the city can do alone, but we can collectively do. Continuing our misdemeanor diversion program, investing in nonviolent policing, and clean slate clinics, and making Durham a sanctuary city. Thank you. I thought you were shaking my hand.
Thank you very much, Pierce. Thank you. And frankly, one thing, if you want to react during the candidate's speech that you can nab from the spoken word community, we have an amazing spoken word poetry community in Durham. By all means, please feel free to snap, because we can still hear them and the candidate can hear you. So, Reverend Sylvester Williams, thank you so much.
Praise the Lord. Thank you. I'm Pastor Sylvester Williams, pastor local church here in Durham. I live in East Durham, and one thing I like to always say that I do love the Lord Jesus. He's first in my life. I thank God for this opportunity to even be here. Is there anyone here from East Durham? Oh, praise the Lord. They even have someone out there. Great. The reason I'm here, I'm a retired financial analyst. I work with Durham Community Affairs of Black people. I've worked with Durham Business Professional Chain, predominantly black groups. And one of the things I see as a pastor, people feel disenfranchised. People feel that law enforcement that doesn't speak to their concerns and their needs. And as a pastor, I see it almost on a daily basis. And one of the things, that's why I'm running, because I know the changes that can be made. One thing that I know that is happening, instead of talking to each other, we're talking at each other. It's the community talking about the police and the police talking about the community, rather than realizing we're in this thing together. If we don't do it together, it won't work. And what I did is that in talking with the community, and also talking with SBI agent, talking with police officers on Central Campus, talking with local police officers, I've come up with some ideas, some things I think that will work. 5 quick bullet points I think that will work here in the city of Durham to move Durham forward. First of all, and I'm just gonna give a little snapshots because I don't have like 2 minutes, a minute and a half. Amen. Number 1, sensitivity training that teaches biblical principles that we are all related and all afford the same consideration under the law. Think of every civilian a cop encounters as a relative. Number 2, application of constitutional core values. Even though the framers of the Constitution were far from perfect, they were on the right track, inspired from English oppression. Transfer that to modern minorities' oppression. Number 3, steeper steps, incentives, and salary to obtain promotion within law enforcement. Test before promotions to weed out officers with personal agendas or vigilantes. Number 4, military-type chain of control in police departments that are actually adhered to and not just a show of patches on sleeves. And number 5, tougher accountability on ranking officers to manage their squad so that even if a line officer messed up, no cover-up, only fair discernment, right or wrong. Sticking to the letter of the law. Sometimes the law seems to be counterproductive, but the department nor the citizenry should arbitrarily dismiss it. And the thing that I'm saying is that if the law does not work for everyone, it does not work for anyone. And we should be, as a community, as a citizens here in the city of Durham, trying to promote that fairness within our city. No one should feel that they're disenfranchised. No one should feel that the law enforcement is not there to protect them. Because one thing I will tell you, when you're in trouble, you want to know that the person coming to your rescue, that is a law enforcement officer, is a person that really cares for you. And this is what I bring as mayor. And thank you for voting for me. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Williams. Yeah, let's try and use that mic. We're doing great on avoiding feedback so far. Hopefully we can keep it going. Shay Ramirez, thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Aaron and Heather and Pinhook, for inviting us. So my number one concern or main issue is crime. I am very big on preventing crime in the community. I am a National Night Out sponsor. I've been one for 5 years. So every year I am participating in National Night Out. I usually do some type of form of fitness for my National Night Out event. What better way to get people involved other than working out and sweating? So for me, I believe that crime in policing, it has to be effective. First, you have to talk to people. You have to get to know people. I was in a village today, and I was getting out of my car, and it was 4 guys and a girl. And it was 2 guys that were homeless sitting outside. And they started talking to me, and I started talking back. And they said, "You are really cool." And they said, "You're not judgmental." I was like, "No." I mean, my thing is that I don't care what your sexuality is. I don't care your religion. I don't care where you come from. Everyone deserves an opportunity. And I believe with policing, I believe that police officers as well as the community. You have to talk, you have to communicate with people, get to know people. If we judge someone on the outside, it's really hard to know someone's characteristics by looking at them on the outside. So I believe policing, the big part is communication. If a police officer is in the area and they are patrolling the area, they need to get to know the neighbors. It's really simple. Just talk to people, communicate with them. That shows them that you care. That builds up trust. So that means that if something were to happen in the community, you could go to the community, you can go to the neighbors, and they'll be willing to talk to you. But if you don't build that relationship of trust, I feel it's kind of hard for the community and the police to be able to have a relationship. So to me, everything starts with a relationship. Communication is the key. I believe that you're either part of the problem or the solution. So for police officers and for policing, you have to communicate. That's the very first thing in order to get anything accomplished in the community that you're in. Thank you.
Thank you, Shay Ramirez, and thank you all the candidates. So we are going to give each candidate a minute to answer each question. We're going to rotate who answers first, because Farad Ali spoke first. We'll allow Steve Schul to answer first. I do want to say we're getting some great questions submitted, both via the hashtag and in person, that are not about policing, which is awesome, because we know you care about more issues than policing. And we are going to have two other forums, one on affordable housing on the 27th at Ponysaurus Brewing, one October 4th at the Rick House on equality of opportunity and development in Durham. And frankly, all of these candidates are individuals and people who will be here after this forum ends, and they won't have a chance necessarily to talk to every single one of you, but I bet they will all endeavor to talk to as many of you as they can about the issues that are important to you. So by all means, keep caring about those other issues, but tonight we're going to stick with policing. The first question, and Meredith is going to try and strictly enforce that 1 minute time limit. She'll give you a little like this when you're at the last 10 seconds so that you know you're at the last 10 seconds if you'd like to wrap up. You got a little chunk left, Pierce. There's a little bit of time left. Depends, maybe she'll give you this, but it'll be harder to see. So we're going to spread the hands far. The first question is a composite that Heather has compiled from various questions that we've gotten. Steve, we're going to let you answer first. All the candidates, if anyone needs me to repeat it, please, by all means. But the first question is, how do you see your role in partnering with Durham's diverse communities in helping to build trust between them and law enforcement? First up, Steve Schul.
So this is really important because the trust issue is critical. And what I will say is I want to just read a few of the things right now that we're doing in Durham and talk about them very, very quickly. Our new chief, the appointment of liaison officers to the Northeast Central Durham community, the LGBTQ community, the Hispanic community. Racial equity training for every one of our police officers, which we have just instituted. The expectation that drug possession and other small offenses by people under 21 are going to go to our misdemeanor diversion court, which has kept hundreds of people already out of our criminal justice system. The chief's decision to cease traffic checkpoints, which have created significant problems from Durham's immigrant population. We have stopped those. The chief's work with SONG to make sure that transgender youth are treated with respect by the Durham Police Department. I've got 10 seconds. But I will just say that these trust-building measures that we have started now are critically important. We need to support them and make them work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve Schul. Pierce Freelon, you're next.
Thank you. I want to, when I think about trust, I think about it in the context of accountability. Trust, if there's a trust problem between the people and the police department, then it's on the axis of accountability that we need to begin to rebuild that trust. And I think a lot of people feel, rightfully abused. If you look at the research that Fade and Song and Spear, there are gross racial disparities in our criminal justice system and in our police department, and so that trust is definitely fractured. And I would ask anyone, if you're in a relationship that is abusive, how do you go about repairing that relationship? It's by being accountable to what the people demand. And so one of the things that Steve just listed off a bunch of things, but I remember there was a big debate in Durham about body cameras. And there was initially, folks were open to the idea of body cameras. But what happened was Governor McCrory said that, oh no, not 10 seconds. Anyway, well, I just want to say that when our governor removed people's ability to see what was on those cameras, then that trust and accountability was gone. And we need to make sure that we're accountable to the people.
Thank you very much, Pierce Freelon. So, Pastor Williams, you're up.
I'll say that my uncle, who's in his 80s, told me that when he was a teenager, that he shot up a bus and a white police officer came out and told him to drop his weapon. He did not. Told him to drop his weapon again. He did not. Told him to drop his weapon the third time while cocking his pistol, and he did. What am I saying? What made the difference then and now? When we look at what times were like back in the 30s and 40s versus what they are now, the thing was, here was a white police officer that was in the community. We've got to have people in the community, because once you're in the community, you are more involved, you're more sensitive to what they're going through. Right now, the salary of an officer on Central's campus who's nowhere near risking his life as much as a police officer on the streets of Durham makes more money than a police officer here. We've got to increase the incentives for officers to be here, living here in the city of Durham, and when they're in the city, in the community, they'll be just like that white police officer that did not kill my cousin, but allowed him to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Williams. Shay Ramirez.
Can you repeat the question again?
Absolutely. How do you see your role in partnering with Durham's diverse communities and helping to build trust between them and law enforcement?
Having the police officers in the community with forums, town hall meetings, engaging between the two parties. I think that's very important, getting ideas from the police officers, law enforcement, and community working together as a team, not against each other, but with each other. Festivals, anytime it's a festival, having the police officers out, not patrolling, but just having them involved in the community. I think, again, that's a way to build up trust. It's really hard to build up trust in a community when you see different things on the media and they're not good pertaining to law enforcement. So I think that police officers, they need to be involved in the community, not just for patrolling, but just, again, just in the community, being involved, creating a relationship between the citizens and themselves.
Thank you so much, Shay. Farad Ali.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think it's important that as you go through this process as being an African-American male is that we really acknowledge that there's a problem. When you're talking about building trust and having these tactics to really help to engage the police officer with the communities, I think we need to really have conversations with the community and start acknowledging that there was a problem, that we feel like some of the national problems that are going on or the state problems that are affecting the people that are most affected. We know the communities that are most affected are communities where there's poverty, where there's people of color. So just not having the police be a part of it by having a liaison or it's a community conversation with them when they actually begin to say, we acknowledge that there's been this issue of the issues of trust, an issue of fear, and begin working through it with the community as a sense of let's do this together and make sure we rebuild those bridges and making sure whatever else that we finance or source, that it's around making sure that we are maximizing the value or the dollars that we invest in the police department to build that level of trust again by acknowledging that we have real issues.
Thank you so much, and all of you candidates are doing wonderfully at adhering to the time, and we're really grateful. It means more questions from the public, the better you adhere to the time. The next question was submitted in advance, and Pierce Freelon will answer first. There is a chilling effect to terms like law and order, which can be seen in the black and brown community as code for police abuse and harassment. How do you square the demands of some who request more police presence in their community and on the streets of neighborhoods with those residents who feel threatened and endangered by police presence, who think those same communities are over-policed? Question from BJ Council. Pierce?
I'm going to take the first 5 seconds to protest our 1 minute limit. It's not enough. But I'll say that we encountered this when we launched our campaign, Knocking Doors. We started in McDougald Terrace, which is the biggest housing project in Durham. It's one of the most poverty-stricken areas, but also one of the most vibrant communities in Durham. And when we were knocking on the doors of the public housing, there was a reoccurring theme of police presence being a menacing presence that exacerbates violence in the community. Then when we were knocking on doors in the surrounding neighborhood up on Fayetteville Street and in and around the MAC, a lot of people were saying we wanted more police. And there was this disconnect there between what people needed to feel safe. But let me talk about the two things that both had in common. They both talked about the need for jobs, good, well-paying, living wage jobs, and they both talked about things for our kids to do, stuff for our youth to be invested in. So if we can agree on those two things, I think that would be a really good start.
Thank you so much, Pierce Freelon. And by the way, if the public feels the same as Pierce Freelon does about more questions, please tell us at that Mayor Up hashtag. The next debate, we could do 2-minute response times. We will get to half as many questions, but you will get to hear deeper answers from the candidates, and we are perfectly willing to hear your opinion on that. Pastor Williams, do you need the question again? Yes. So there is a chilling effect to terms... There is a chilling effect to terms like law and order, which can be seen in the black and brown community as code for police abuse and harassment. How do you square the demands of some who request more police presence in their community and on the streets of neighborhoods with those residents who feel threatened and endangered by police presence and who think those same communities are over-policed?
What I say to that is this. When I worked for a Fortune 500 company as an investment analyst, one of the things they asked me, Sylvester, what are your complaints about Durham? You have black city officials in elected office. What are your complaints? And the same thing that I'm saying now. If we had the wheel, there would be no complaints. My thing is that we have a black chief of police. We have black city councilmen. We have people in elected office who tend to look the other way when you see injustices being done. And that's the reason why, as I talk to people in the streets, as a pastor, as a leader, the one thing that I hear, they feel that no one is listening to them, that everyone is ignoring what they're saying. But I come from East Durham. I come from the part of town where I'm listening to people. And that's what we need, someone willing to listen, to address those concerns that they have. And in addressing those concerns that they have, then you'll see a better collaboration. You'll not feel as though they're being over-policed because...
Thank you. And by all means, do feel free to finish a sentence after the time limit. Candidate Ramirez?
So, it's difficult because when you have certain people in certain communities, they don't want the police there, but when something happens, they call the police. So it's hard to get them to understand that they need the police, even though the police, some of them don't always do their job and do it effectively. Again, I believe that communication is the big key. We gotta be effective. We have to communicate. We have to come together and talk and let the citizens know, as well as the officers. Police officers are there for a reason. And not every cop is a bad cop. There are some cops that are not good cops. And I do feel and believe that if you have a particular officer that's in the community and they're doing things that are not correct, status quo, being prejudice against other people, they need to be removed out of that community and place people in the community that are willing to work with the community and not judge.
Thank you so much. Farad Ali?
Yeah, great question. I do think that we need to help police understand that it's around protecting and serving, and to make sure that the community understand that the police role is to protect and serve. I don't think it's a tyranny of either or, the sense of over-policing or not having enough police. And no matter what community I'm in, if I expect that if I call the police officer, that they should treat me with humane, a sense of dignity, and to assist me in my issues. So I think understanding that it shouldn't be a sense of over-policing or under-policing. We should have some expectations of humane treatment, respect, and deal with the issue that we have at hand. And no one in the community that is maybe impoverished or less invested, or a community that's even more invested, that they should feel when they call the police that they're gonna get anything less than that. So that's where we need to work towards our police system, such that it's not a sense of either or, but that we've got a system that when you call for a plumber, you expect them to fix the stuff, right? So that's what it should be with same thing we have with police officers. When we have an issue, we expect that there would be some resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Steve Schul.
I want to second the request for longer answering period. So I think that what's easy is to talk about it in generalities. What's hard is to actually figure out things that will fix it. Because I think that people want both effective policing and non-discriminatory policing. So here's one thing that we've done at City Council, and I can describe in a minute. We now require written consent searches for any consent search of a car. This has put us amongst very few cities in the country that do this, and what it has meant is that our searches have, in the last 18 months, have gone down by 44%. In the last 6 months, compared to the year before, we had 302 drug offenses that were drug charges, as opposed to 610 for the 6 months the year before. That's something that makes a practical difference in the lives of hundreds of people, and that's the kind of work it takes. We all know what we want. What's hard is to figure out how to do it. So we need specific policies that can do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I know for sure all the candidates like hearing you snap, so if you hear things you like, by all means snap. The next question is going to be asked by a member of the audience who's here, so forgive me if I butcher your name, but I have Gabrielle Baldassare with a question, if you'd like to come forward. And we are hearing the candidates on they'd like longer time. We would be happy to grant that. We will get to half as many questions, but we would love to hear from them. So if that's your feeling, tell us. Mr. Baldassare.
Yes, thank you. My question is a little bit long, so I'll try to get through it.
Please hold your question to 1 minute.
I will do that. So in 2008, the former Durham Police Chief Lopez went to Israel to train with the Israeli National Police, the Israeli Defense Forces, and experts from Israel's intelligence and security services as part of a police exchange program. Our current police chief, Davis, was very involved in organizing the same type of exchange program in her role as Atlanta Police Division Commander. On these trips, law enforcement exchanged worst practices, which include spying and surveillance, the destabilizing of social justice organizations, increasing the use of military equipment and tactics in policing, framing protest movements as military threats, and employing shoot-to-kill policies and heightened racial profiling, and targeting. These trips exchange skills and tools of repression between two already racist government institutions and serve to mutually reinforce and legitimize those institutions. Would you commit to ensuring that these deadly exchanges will never take place in Durham?
I believe Pastor Williams goes first.
Yes, one of the things that I'm for is life in any instance. And I'm not for deadly force in any instance. And those tactics being used, these are people who are removed from the community, people that do not know the community. It's like, as I said, one of the bullet points that I read. Could you see shooting your mother or your grandmother down if they did something wrong? These are people who are removed from the community. The more we get involvement with people in the community, the less we'll have questions like this. And that's the thing we got to realize, that we're in this thing together. It's not us against them or them against us, but it's us working together to make Durham into a better Durham, which I know it can be. And so, no, I'll be totally opposed to those type police tactics, because one of the things that we do not want in the United States of America, we do not want a police state. And we don't have to have those things if we follow through and love our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, and appreciate your sense of humor, Pastor Williams. Shay Ramirez?
Definitely not. I would not agree with it at all. I believe that this is our community, and we have to work together in the community, citizens and law enforcement. Local government doesn't know everything. Police officers don't know everything. I believe that we work together with our ideas, our talents, creativity. I believe that we can make Durham, great, better as far as law enforcement. But I would not tolerate that at all whatnot. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Farad Ali.
Yeah, great question. I understanding the root of that question, it talks a lot about what happened with Police Chief Lopez, and I think I heard a lot of that.
The police exchange program.
Right, I understand, but I'm saying a lot of that was with Lopez's training. CJ has come in and worked on de-escalation plans and working with the police department here. So I feel confident that no, I do not want that kind of training implemented in this community, but I think the Chief Davis is focused on de-escalation. I do understand what Lopez was doing. I was on city council when he was there, but it's clear to me that CJ Davis is clear from coming from Atlanta and implementing new strategies for de-escalation that's actually against some of the things that had happened earlier.
Councilman Schul.
No, I would not support that and that kind of training by Israel or anybody else, the kind of training you described. Thank you.
Absolutely not. I do think it's important that we hold our city council members accountable for what happened on their watch with Lopez, as you spoke about. I think it's alarming to see some of the connections there. And if you look at what's happening across the country, this militarization of police departments, and you saw it happen in 2013 right here in Durham when the police department was shooting tear gas at protesters right here on Main Street at CCB Plaza, a block away from here. It's a part of the military-industrial complex, dumping access equipment onto municipal police departments and treating our streets like Baghdad. Treating East Durham. And for the record, I oppose the military occupation of the United States and Palestine also. I don't think that should be happening either, but it certainly shouldn't be happening in Durham. Yeah.
Thank you so much. The next question comes from an online contributor, and Shay Ramirez, you'll go first. It is, how will you limit and define the terms of cooperation between the Durham Police Department and ICE/CPB, the CBP?
So I believe when it comes to that, if someone is over here, they are a legal immigrant. If they're a working citizen, they are not committing any crimes, doing anything wrong, I do not think they need to be stopped or profiled. And working with the police, I would have it to where the police, if they do stop someone and they're illegal, not to call ICE right away, especially if they are, again, they're here and they're working, they have a family, they're not bothering anybody. It's something different, if they are committing crimes. But if they're over here and they're not bothering anybody, I don't think that they need to be extra profiled or stopped. So definitely I would not have the Durham Police Department contact ICE in that situation.
Yeah, great question. I think it's important that we don't use ICE as a first place to go when we see someone who may appear to be someone that's not a citizen in our country. We know that there's been a profile case of police officers in the past focused on people of color and pulling them more over in the daytime than people who are not. And it's so important that we don't use that as a reference point to send people out of our city and to understand how to do that. But I do want to recognize that relationship was built around helping to get drugs off the street. And if we can use that to help improve our communities, how do we maximize it for that purpose, but not for the purpose of deporting people?
So our police department's policy is the right policy, which is not to do the immigration enforcement that ICE is supposed to be doing for itself. But ICE is here, it is in town, that's a reality. We cannot protect ourselves from that reality. We cannot protect everyone in Durham from that. But there are things we can do. Here are some of them. One is no checkpoints. And that's what Chief Davis has done, and that's absolutely right. Another is this. This is the faith ID. I carry it. I know Mayor Bell carries it. Many of us carry it. This is issued by El Centro Hispano, endorsed by the City Council, recognized by our police department as ID for an undocumented person, so they don't have to be dragged down to jail if they don't have one. This is something that our police department does, and I think it's very important. I think that the biggest issue we have with ICE is actually with the Sheriff Department with ICE holds. That's not something that the City Council has responsibility for, but I do think that it's a practice that really needs to be improved here in Durham, and I urge you to take it up with the Sheriff. Thank you so much.
Look at how they're starting to nail that 1 minute timeline, huh?
Yeah, this is an important question, particularly in this moment. 2 days ago, President Trump announced that he was going to, eliminate one of the most important pieces of legislation that President Obama put into action, and it puts all of our entire community at risk. Don't think that that's just the immigrant population that is suffering because of that. We all bear the weight of that terrible choice. And because of that, the context of our federal government and our state government and the ways in which they are criminalizing and targeting Latino, undocumented, Latinx community members, our brothers and sisters and gender nonconforming family members, we need to make a principled stance against that. And I think that Durham Police Department should not be collaborating with ICE to rip families apart. We've seen that happen in the history of this country, and it should not be repeated on our watch. Durham should be doing everything in its power, including the citizens. A couple weeks ago, I was at Pastor Jose Chicas's vigil for him at a local church, and I encourage everyone in the community.
Pierce, we're going to let you tell everybody about that on the way out the door.
Okay, I'll tell you more about Pastor
Thank you.
Chicas. Thank you. That was a sentence, though.
Pastor Williams?
Long sentence.
Durham is not a sanctuary city. The reason why we have immigrants here in the city is because of the low wages. People are talking on both sides of their mouth. They're talking about a livable wage, but then they're bringing in people for these low wages, and that's why a lot of folks are coming here, because they know they can come here these cheaper wages. And the thing we need to understand is that in speaking out against those things, you're helping the community. When you let them know that, okay, we're going to give you the same type of wages we give everyone else. There are people coming in. I have Hispanic neighbors, and I know what's going on. And they're coming here because they're looking for money. And a lot of times the money they're getting paid is not a livable wage. And so the best thing you could do, because like I say, Durham is one of the few cities in this country. Some think it's a sanctuary city, but it is not. There are cities that are sanctuary cities, and the reason that they are sanctuary cities because there are a lot of people coming there for the ability to support and take care of their families.
Thank you so much. The next question, a policing question submitted by the Pinhook, who I might add allowed both us, the Clarion Content, the candidates, and all of you to be here for free tonight. So thank you to the Pinhook. Please do patronize them. And as they say when Pierce is on stage for other reasons, tip the bartenders. You're worried about those low-wage people. Take care of your bartenders, please. I may even moonlight in that regard myself. So from the Pinhook. The Pinhook is an institution that believes in defunding the police. As such, we would like to ask the mayoral candidates the following question. What do you believe the role of policing is in our community? How do you think you can empower and encourage communities to care for and protect one another without relying on the police? Farad Ali will be first.
I don't agree that we should have no policing. They run into chaos when we call police because we need them. I do believe that we should have some community policing in our communities where we feel like we help protect one another. Robert Putnam talked about that in Bowling Alone, how we care for one another in our communities. But right now our communities are segmented, right? We have poor and rich, black, white, gay, straight. So it would be a bad analysis to say that we have community policing because the people in certain communities on the west side of Durham may not be protecting the people who are on the east side of Durham. And that's not happening today. So I would say that having police is important, but making sure that the police are here to protect and to serve. And again, I go back to making sure they give everyone a sense of dignity, they treat them with honor, and they respect them as they try to assist them. So not having police is a hard pill to swallow for our community. But since we do have police and we understand that there's some problems or some gaps or some variances, I think it's important that we figure out solutions to beat that, and I think we've talked about some of those today.
I think the way we get to a place where we don't ever need police is that we attack the root causes of poverty, and we do a lot of the things that we all know we need to do. We need a great school system, that every kid is getting a great education. We need to be happy. We can't have a school system where half of our teachers have been here less than 5 years because we're not paying them well enough. We need affordable housing so that everybody in Durham has a safe, dry, warm, affordable place to live, and that's our job on the city council to help make that happen, and I work on that every day, every day. We need a healthy community. We need people who have access to health care, and part of it's the federal government. We need the Affordable Care Act, and we really need single payer, but we don't have it. Let's get the Affordable Care Act working. Those are the things that we can do that will get us beyond policing. Yeah, so that's my minute. A minute's hard to give a complex answer to a complex question, so I'm advocating for 2 minutes next time. Thank you.
Okay. Could you repeat the question one more time for me, just to make sure?
Certainly. So from the Pinhook is an institution that believes in defunding the police. As such, we would like to ask the mayoral candidates the following question. What do you believe the role of policing is in our community? How do you think you can empower and encourage communities to care for and protect each other without relying on the police?
Okay, thank you. Well, first, thank you very much, Pinhook, for that question. I think that's a question on a lot of folks' mind. That idea of how do we get there? It's certainly been on my mind. I think that prison abolition, people like Angela Davis and the movement for Black Lives is something that we need to have the civic imagination to be able to picture that and to start building towards it. I don't think we're there in this moment right now, but I hope that I'm setting the wheels in motion for my children and my grandchildren to live in a world where they can move about the community, not feeling threatened either by the symptoms of poverty or by the police that are brought in to try to contain that. And so it will take some work for us to build that capacity, but we should everyone in this room should be thinking about getting towards a place where that is a reality in Durham and across the country.
In 2007, the state legislature branch apologized for institutional racism. I asked Mickey Michaud, what does that mean, a state legislator? He said, those were just words. What am I saying? You cannot eliminate the police department as long as you have institutional racism, as long as you have things happening where there's one part of the segment of the population is being treated worse than another segment of the population. And the thing that I'm saying that the way you do that, as I said before, the police here in Durham make less than the police on Central's campus. Who would want to defend someone who's putting their life on the line when they're going to a house? They don't know what's behind their door or what's going to happen to them if they're going to go home and see their families at night. No, I would not be in favor of defunding the police department. But I would say that community watch, I would say that neighborhood watch, I would say that the communities coming together will be one thing that we can do. But as far as defunding the police department, no.
I'm going to say effective leadership amongst local officials. I think that's really huge. And what I mean by that is by being physically in the community, allowing the people to see your face, by actually doing and less talking. We do a lot of talking and planning and implementing, but at the end of the day, we have to be in the community. We have to be visible. People have to see us. And I believe that once they see us, they physically see us, then change will come. But it has to start with the head, and we have to be involved in the community. We have to be seen. Our also to when you're in the community and you see something that's going on, this is our community. So we have to all be involved. A couple of weeks ago, I was at the library, and it was about to be a shootout. I'll tell y'all later. Anyway, I stopped the shootout, not thinking about me getting shot, but just thinking that I don't want to die today. I like my life, so I have to intervene and say something. I'll tell you about that later.
Thank you so much. And I do want to applaud you, the audience, and the candidates for both great questions and great answers. It makes me very proud to live in Durham, to know this many people care, and this many people have intelligent questions, and we have this many great candidates who have good answers about what we are going to do as a community. The next question was submitted by Jose Romero, and he would like me to read it for him. What will you do, Steve Schul will go first. What will you do to defend the Durham residents at the Liberty Street housing and elsewhere who are being displaced by the new police department headquarters that costs us over $71 million?
So let me ask you about that question again. The Liberty Street apartments and the new headquarters, was that somehow the same thing?
It says, what will you do to defend the Durham residents at the Liberty Street housing and elsewhere being displaced by the new police department headquarters costing us over $71 million? So I'm not sure. The Liberty Street housing is what it says.
The housing complex across the street from the new police headquarters.
Well, I don't know that anyone's being displaced from there, but I do think displacement is a huge issue in Durham. And I can talk about that. I think that the main things that we need, well, when we get to the Affordable Housing Forum, I'll talk a lot about it, but I'll tell you briefly here. I think that we need to, and the City Council has just asked our administration to come back to us and create a program of tax relief and home repair for all of our low-income, long-term homeowners citywide. We've asked our administration to come tell us how to do that because those people are being displaced. And then we need to create a really strong affordable housing program for affordable rental, which we are working on and which we are succeeding at and which we will do. And so I think that's my minute. But I think we need a really strong affordable housing program. Gentrification is not something we can beat, but we can fight it. And we can fight it by an affordable housing program that works. And come to the Affordable Housing Forum, and I'll tell you about it more than you want to know.
Thank you for the question. I think that displacement is a bigger issue than the new police department, but it's interconnected. We've had over $1.5 billion invested in a 1 mile radius of this downtown loop, and let's be honest, the reason there's a police department that is costing us $71 million on the edge of East Durham is directly related to that development and the protection of that property that is raising up in downtown Durham. Directly connected. So what I would encourage all of us to do is look at our budget as a reflection of our morals. Where are we going as a city? Put your money where your mouth is, you know? How much are we investing in policing versus how much we're investing in jobs? How much we're investing in affordable housing? We just put an additional penny in for affordable housing. We need to put as much enthusiasm and passion and investment in uplifting the least among us as we do in protecting rich people's property.
This is personal. I was talking to residents of Oldham Tower. They're expressed to me that how they had no place to go because there was talk of them being put out. They had no places to go. And one of the things that's happened this area, talking about affordable housing, right now we just don't have the will to do it. Right now there's $45 million in reserves sitting there. You could take that same money, you could apply it to affordable housing. Right now, for those in the investment field, you know about real interest rates. Right now, real interest rates are near zero for municipalities. You could float $100 million bond, and you could create housing now. There is not the will to take care of the less fortunate of us here in Durham. We have the money, we have the resources. When you go from, when I ran the last time, 2013, from 12.5% in reserves to 25%, reserves have doubled over the year, up to $45 million. And we're saying, well, where are we going to get the money from?
So I believe that with affordable housing, I'm really big on ownership. And I believe that as people, I believe that affordable housing first is a stepping stone. Everyone won't meet the mark, but I think we need to allow people to have the opportunity to have ownership. With that being said, if they're paying rent, a percentage of their rent should go towards a down payment of a home. If you can afford to pay some rent, then you can afford to have a mortgage. These are people that are able-bodied and not disabled and can work, pretty much. But I do believe that we need to push people into ownership. Ownership is really the key. Accountability and ownership, and I think that will be a great start.
Thank you very much. The next question comes from a Facebook post, and I would remind you, please use that Mayor Up hashtag. Oh, did I not give you a chance to answer?
No, you didn't. No. Why don't you go ahead
Oh,
and
boo for the moderator. Boo. No snaps.
And can you go ahead and repeat the question? Since you
Yeah,
set it
since
up?
I was all ready to get you the next question. Yes. What will you do to defend the Durham residents at the Liberty Street housing and elsewhere who are being displaced by the new police department headquarters, which is costing us over $71 million?
Yeah, so
My apologies.
No, it's all good. I think understanding that the displacement issue is the key to this, and we're doing planning around this. So I'm not sure how the police station is adversely affecting the housing in that they're pushing people out. But I do think we need to understand what the number of affordable housing units that we need in our community. And when we see that people are being affected by economic development, or it's not just the police station, it's also the big building across the street and other places when you start seeing development, is how do we have a central understanding of how, when you do construction or economic development, how does it affect the community? And how do you have a plan around the effect of the community and what you're gonna do to offset that? So you don't just construct a building to solve your choice for some ROI or whatever that may be, but you look at the value that you're gonna add back to the community and make sure the people in the community get a chance to be a part of the jobs in rebuilding that, so they can participate in being able to get housing and the rest of those things.
Thank you so much, Farad Ali. So we started with Steve on that last one. We're starting with Pierce on this next one, correct? Yes. Okay.
Okay.
I need guidance, people. Feel free to lean in. All right. So from a Facebook post, as mayor, how would you ensure that the police department, that the police who shoot innocent people are held accountable? So as mayor, how would you ensure that police who shoot innocent people are held accountable? Piers Freelon, you'll go first.
Thank you. This actually builds on the earlier question we were talking about rebuilding trust, and I think accountability is essential to that rebuilding trust. And so I'll actually pivot back to where I was going with that question. I was talking about body cameras and the ways that body cameras were supposed to be an accountability measure. And then after the governor's action that prevented the public from having access to that video footage, it ceased being an accountability measure and started being a surveillance tool. And I want to make sure that we are listened to and are responsive to the community members when they make demands. You know, if a body camera is not going to be accessible to us, if we can't look at what's on it, then it's not the tool isn't useful anymore for our intended goal. And you know, we have people. You know, it's important for us as leaders, as mayor, as city council members, to listen to and be responsive to the will of the people. And I know that Spirit House, the Fade Coalition, and others were against body cameras, and some people still voted for it anyway. And I think that's a lack of accountability that needs to be addressed.
Could you repeat the question?
Absolutely. Sorry, I have the next question. As mayor, how would you ensure that police who shoot innocent people are held accountable?
First thing that I would do, that the chief of police and I will have frequent conversations There need to be a level of accountability between the mayor's office and also the chief of police. And also the next thing is point number 5 that I made earlier when I opened speaking, tougher accountability on ranking officers to manage their squads so that even if a line officer messed up, no cover-up, only fair discernment, right or wrong, sticking to the letter of the law. No one gets a free pass.
Well, the first thing, they won't be getting paid leave. No paid leave. I don't understand how, you have officers under investigation and they're at home getting paid when someone is been killed, and we clearly looking at the video and we're seeing that they didn't do anything. So the first thing would be paid leave would definitely be out of the question. Accountability is really huge for me, and I just don't understand how we can put the criminals under the same scrutiny, but the police officers are different. So if they commit a crime, they need to follow the same guidelines as someone that's a criminal.
Great question, and I think it's the police are the protect and serve, and if they are not protecting and serve and they shoot someone, particularly if they're not in danger, that they need to pull their gun, they need to be prosecuted by law the same way anyone else would be.
I want 20 of his seconds. I think the main way to hold people accountable in the police department is to have the right police chief. And I think we have the chief who will hold officers accountable. In terms of getting the kind of accountability we want, we have to have good police officers. We have to hire the best. We have to pay them well. We have to train them well. We have to support them well. And then we have to hold them strictly accountable. And I believe that we have the chief that will do that. And we have to, if there's an incident, as we do, ask the chief and the city manager very tough questions about what happened and make sure that we get a very good report about that. We're barred by law from having a tougher civilian police review board by state law, but we absolutely need to be asking the tough questions that we can ask, and we need to have the independent investigation by the State Bureau of Investigation every time. Thank you.
All right, so the next question is going to start with Pastor Williams. Are you aware of best practices in policing that could be utilized here in Durham? Pretty straightforward, but seems pretty important.
I'm aware of community practices, meaning that when police officers are involved in the community, you find that there is a better rapport between the citizens of Durham and the police officers. And that's one of the things that I'm advocating for, that we have officers who actually live here in the city in order to develop that relationship where not only are the citizens more trusting of the police officers, but the police officers more trusting of the citizens.
Can you read the question again?
Absolutely. Are you aware of best practices in policing that could be utilized here in Durham?
I'm going to say prevention, intervention, community support, and zero tolerance. Community support is really huge for me. Again, we have to have a plan in place. I don't believe anything can be accomplished without a plan, and that is with the police officers and the citizens working together to come up and solve the solutions in their community.
Is it okay? Okay, good. Yeah, I think community policing, there are lots of opportunities. Mayors and city council members from around the country have been coming together to talk about this issue. Community policing has become really important. But some of the things you can do is identify partners in doing this, because police cannot do it by themselves. One ways is that the police can start engaging with youth groups and participating in coaching and understanding kids and helping them to understand the relationship with the police department. They did a lot of this through the GREAT program that we're not doing anymore, unfortunately. We also have programs where pastors are partnering with police and start talking about congregational issues and working through their congregation so there's some trust built in the religious community. Other ways we can do this is to begin to have things where we have communities. We have Coke with a cop. We can have cookies with a cop, or really start engaging them in the relational opportunities. So around the country, they've been creating a lot of organizational processes where we can have more people engaging with the police in a more relational way and less from a way of just resting and going to our communities.
So I've recited a lot of the reforms that we have made at City Council that I think are working or have the potential to work, but I will mention one area where I do think we are not doing what we should be doing and have not done well. We've had 2 young men in the past couple of years in Durham who were depressed, who were suicidal, and who had a gun or had something that looked very much like a gun that people believed was a gun. Both of those people died at the hands of our police officers, Derek Walker and Levante Biggs. This should never have happened. It was not a crime, it was not murder, but what it was not patience. We need the kind of crisis intervention training so that if someone is depressed and suicidal, if it takes 12 hours to talk them down, it takes 12 hours to talk them down. If it takes 24 hours to talk them down, it takes 24 hours to talk them down. So I feel very strongly this is an area where we can improve. We have a lot of good crisis intervention work in Durham, and I see that when I ride along with police officers. But we haven't done it in these very, very serious instances. A best practice would change that.
I think a lot of best practices have been implemented by Chief Davis. We have de-escalation training as a part of our Durham Police Department now. I think we can add trauma-informed care as a part of that. I think that we've also got, I think it's very important, not just in the police department, but for all city employees to go through racial equity training and to understand very deeply implicit bias and the ways that can impact their ability to protect and serve. I think that the misdemeanor diversion program is another excellent tool in our toolkit here in Durham. And again, clean slate clinics will be another really important tool to make sure that folks aren't criminalized. Because right now, people in poverty are criminalized, and there's a big recidivism rate that happens as soon as you get that first charge. It's so difficult to get out. So I think those are some tools that we could use and continue to build on here in Durham.
Thank you so much. The next person requested that they would like to read their question. Reverend Curtis Gatewood, do you have a question? Are you here, sir? I'm here. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Not to pick on the Reverend's handwriting, but I might have had trouble anyway. Here you go, sir.
Thank you very much. Without my even getting into the ugly history of slavery and the slave patrols, we know post-slavery we've had more than 150-year existence of so-called white supremacists who violently operate as domestic terrorists who have historically targeted and murdered African Americans and other people of color. Historically, in most cases, they've not only gone without serving a day in jail, but have often worked in concert with the FBI and law enforcement. In light of the conspicuous double standard for so-called war on terrorism, and how in the case of Charlottesville, Virginia, and the escalation of Trumpism through racism, racist terrorists are being emboldened. So number one, what would you do as mayor to ensure white supremacist terrorists are not becoming stronger and plotting to criminally carry out acts of terrorism? And number two, what would you do to ensure racist terrorists are not joining and infiltrating the police department?
And I'm going to count on you to tell me who goes first. I've lost track. Shay?
Well, that's a big question. Wow.
I know. This will be
Well, the very first thing is just dealing with Charlottesville. It was a very bad situation. We first need to recognize and realize that racism is real. We can't address an issue unless we bring it to the forefront. So we have to acknowledge it, and then we deal with it. But the first thing is we have to acknowledge it. So it is there, it's prevalent in the community, but we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room. The second thing is that no one's born racist. It's a taught behavior. So my thing is that I believe that no one can really love someone else unless they love themselves. So I would encourage and implement and just be me being me in the community, showing that act of kindness and act of love on every citizen, no matter their race, their religion, their sexuality. Yeah.
Thank you, Reverend Gatewood. There's no way to answer that question in 1 minute, but I will tell you in short that there should be no tolerance in this community for that. Zero tolerance. When we find that people are participating in racism or Nazism or any fascism in our community, because we know the people that get hurt most of that are the people who are poor and people of color. Also, if that's found in our community, that we address it and acknowledge it and deal with it, and not slide it under the rug and say, well, that was just one officer, but to continue to look around the whole community that the officer lived in and played in and worked in to see if it was systemic or infectious in any way, and then to look at the records of the people. So there should be no tolerance for that kind of behavior, particularly in our progressive community that we have here, that we have such various mindsets of people that are moving things forward. So there's no tolerance. That's all right.
Well, I thought Farad said that beautifully, and I totally agree. I think if the Klan wants to march in Durham, we meet them massively and peacefully. And we are bigger, braver, bolder, and many more than they are. And we express that, and we express it peacefully. We express our Durham values every single time. In terms of the police department, I think Farad said it. We just have the tolerance for that is zero. And we cannot have any kind of racism like that in our police department. And if we see any instances of it, we need to root it out. All of our police officers get racial equity training. Our top city management, and this year another 150 city employees are getting racial equity training. We need to continue to expand that. We need to look at every issue through a racial equity lens, most especially this one.
So I agree with Steve that we reflect our values, and Reverend Gatewood, this is how I would articulate that. I wrote a song called Captain America. I want to give you the last verse. There's more to this heritage of this black power America fears and cherishes. After emancipation, they expanded experiments, replicated the plantation under new management. They locked us in a cell, the propaganda was scandalous. Overseers, the officers, they branded us terrorists. The private prison industry, they lobbied the candidates, gave mandatory sentences for handling cannabis. Captain America, look what we saved Americans. Billions in cheap labor, it's a slave's inheritance. This is what it is to be black in America. It feels like any minute I'll be capped in America. So that's the bars. Tell you how I feel. But I do think it's important that we project our values unapologetically so that the white supremacists know that they have no sanctuary in Durham or the Durham Police Department.
I guess it's okay since Steve Shule said that he was white, that I say that I'm black. But one of the things that I've seen and noticed that blacks in position, this is why when talking with white friends and white citizens of Durham, they don't understand what's going on. Why isn't the black leadership, why aren't they stepping up to the plate and confronting this racism that's taking place? I mean, these things that are happening in the city of Durham, I mean, it shouldn't be happening. But you have folks who are not confronting it. They're looking the other way. The thing I say as far as what I would do is point number 3 that I read earlier. Steeper steps, incentives, and salary to obtain promotion within law enforcement. Test before promotion to weed out officers with personal agendas or vigilantes. And what that means that once that happens, we've got to be willing as leaders to confront what we know to be wrong for the citizens of Durham.
Thank you so much. We want to say we have a pile of fantastic questions still, but we did say that we would end at 8:30. We're going to do one more question because everyone seems so enthusiastic. We're still packed in the room. Please, the candidates, use that Mayor Up hashtag. Please, the audience, there is a Facebook group. You can use Mayor Up on Instagram, on Twitter. All of the candidates' emails are publicly available. You can talk to them on the way out of the room. There's bio questionnaires. We're going to have 2 more of these community forums, mayoral forums, where we all meet up and discuss. In light of all the requests by the candidates, we're going to give 2 minutes to answer the last question. Heather Cook wrote in bold on this, 2 minutes for the last question. So you have been heard.
And how many will take 3?
All right, so I'm sorry, who are we going to go first? Farad Ali. Okay, so the question is, there has been discussion about community-oriented policing in Durham's past. This would include actions such as incentivizing police living in high-crime areas, foot patrols, community activities coordinated with the police department, basically working on building relationships with the families and communities in high-crime areas. Has there been any more discussion about this, or more importantly, what is happening right now in relation to community-oriented policing that you would like to tell the public about? And do you support community-oriented policing? This was submitted by Pete Eisman. 2 minutes, Meredith, thank you.
Right, thank you. So the new police chief has helped to create more community-oriented police by having police be in the system. We now have police taking home cars if they live in the community of Durham. We also recognize that police are more on bicycles and being a part of the community as they continue to build relationships. I think it's important that we have police not just active in our packs, but in our community with our sports, with our recreation department, with also our churches and synagogues and mosques, and the things that are important to the community where they live and play. And the police should not just be sensed as an enforcement, but more of an engagement. So as we talk about community policing, I think holding the police accountable for that engagement, incentivizing them for their engagement, the same way that other police may have been incentivized in the past for writing tickets or capturing people or success in the way they shoot the guns or whatever they may be as they continue to get promotions. I think we need to make sure that we talk about the community policing as a part of their growth and their development as leaders, as well as to make sure that they engage with their community and see community partners. We also have an opportunity in our police department to really form real significant partnerships, not just with the private marketplace, but also the nonprofit marketplace, where we say that the police is a part of this triple P, where we say, how does the police department engage with some community issues around mental health and stress and psychology, and also deal with activities that may go, crimes that happen in rich areas. I don't want to leave the stage where we just hear people talk about the crimes that are happening in poor communities. Crimes don't just happen in poor communities, they also happen in rich communities. And we see things that are happening across our whole city. So while the numbers may show that poor communities get more abuse or more attention because they may have more issues, we need to recognize that police have to serve this whole entire city. And because of all the complex issues, that they need to be active in all the parts of this city. And that opportunity to be active must be engaged, planned, specific, and measured so we can see what's happening.
So I think one of the main things we need to do in terms of community policing is we need more of our police officers to live in Durham. And we are now we are now giving every police officer who lives in Durham a take-home car. And this is, I think, a really important incentive. We're also paying officers one-time bonuses to move into Durham. I think it's really important that our officers, as many as possible, live in the community that they are policing, and I think this is a great step forward. But let me just also, this is my last 2 minutes, so I want to say a couple things. it is an honor to be on the stage with these colleagues. I mean, this is probably our 6 of these. I think we have about, seriously, like 20 more. But it's an honor, and, I just feel like it's been such a great experience thus far, and appreciate it. The other thing I want to say is, on this policing thing, here's what I think the biggest thing is for me. And I said I was white, and I didn't get to finish that, so why, who cares? Most of you all are too in this group. And that gives us a special responsibility. I don't know what it's like to be stopped for driving while black. I don't know that. And most of you don't either. So that means we all have to be looking at this issue through a racial equity lens. That's what I try to do, and I think that's not just me, it's incumbent upon all of us. That's how we're going to be constantly thinking about the institutional racism that we do have a history of in Durham. We recently did our police department commissioned a study from RTI, and what it showed, this was 2 years ago, it was a veil of darkness study, and the same officers before dark, in the 2 hours before dark, the 2 hours after dark, were stopping drivers at about the same rate, white and black. Those same officers in the 2 hours before dark, when it was light out, were stopping people, African Americans, at 4 times the rate as of whites. We have this history, we need to root it out, and it's incumbent upon all of us to do it, not just us, but you as well. So thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight and have this discussion.
Thank you. Thanks again for having us out here. It's been a deep conversation. I've really appreciated the questions a lot. On the issue of community policing, I want to go back to the statement that I started with, which is there's a difference between policing and public safety. And to answer the question, do I think the people responsible for the safety of a community should live in that community? The answer is absolutely yes. Does that person need to be a police officer? Not necessarily is the answer to that part of the question. And I think we need to be providing our communities with more tools to be self-determining in their own safety measures and mechanisms. And how we do that is by providing jobs, by providing affordable housing, by working to address the root of the problem, which we already talked about, is poverty. Now, another important part, poverty works, we've learned from radical black feminism, intersectionality. In fact, you see a good example of intersectionality there. It says no racism, sexism, bigotry, classism, all these different things are interconnected. So we also have to acknowledge institutional racism and white supremacy that is very much a part of our system currently and has historically been so. And there was an earlier question about, about white nationalists and KKK. That is only a sliver, it's an outburst of something that is actually deeply entrenched in our systems every day. 85% of arrests for marijuana in Durham are young black men, brothers that look like me. And even though there have been some laws put in place, some wonderful policies by Chief Davis that have reduced the number of marijuana arrests by 50%, I would love to see the statistics on how many of that 50% are people of color. Because right? Because and that is the root of the problem, and that is the core of the work that needs to be done.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Pinhook. Thank you all for just this wonderful time here. I've truly enjoyed myself being a part of such wonderful, wonderful candidates for mayor. I really think it's a great group up here. The thing I say as far as community policing, I'm in favor of. I think we need more foot patrols. I mean, the more you walk through the community, the better you can understand what some of these citizens are going through. I think one of the things that I think has been neglected, we've not talked about, I think we need greater police presence in our school systems. One of the things that my daughter was in children's in elementary school, one of the things they stated then is that by the 4th grade, they started determining then whether or not a child's gonna drop out of school, and if that child drops out of school, more than likely he will become involved in the criminal justice system. And so what I say is this right here, to build that type of relationship in the school system at an early age so they can understand right, understand wrong, understand the consequences of right and wrong. When I was in school, long years ago, they had sex ed classes where they would teach you what you could and could not do in school. And it impacted a lot of us. It made a lot of us afraid to go out and do things that we felt was wrong. But the same thing I'm saying could be done in our school systems. We could have officers coming to the schools helping the young people understand, because I've talked to gangbangers, I've talked to Crips, I've talked to Bloods. A lot of them do not understand the consequences of their actions. And so they're being held to a standard they don't even know about. And what I'm saying is that if we were to bring the police officers into our school systems and encourage them to have conversations with our younger people, not wait till they get to high school or college grads, but when they're in elementary school, help them understand the consequences of some of the things they're doing, the behavior that they're exhibiting. And I think these are the things that I think that can help make this whole thing a lot better, and what we could do to make Durham a better Durham.
I would like to thank everyone for this opportunity. I have enjoyed myself, and also working with each and every one of my candidate partners has been a great experience, and I'm enjoying every minute of it. So with the community policing, one of the main things is economics. So when you have a lack of economics, you have several things. You have poor health, you have inadequate housing, and you have crime. So when someone doesn't have an affordable living wage, those things come into place. So I think that's really important for local government to come up with ideas with the community, partnering with the community and local government to come up with ways, programs, bringing in companies that will allow individuals that may not have a 4-year degree, may not have a trade, to allow them to come in and get schooling, ownership, possibly entrepreneurship within the company, allow them the ability to have the opportunity to be successful. Also, I agree with Steve and all the other ones about the police cars. That's a great idea, but I do believe that the police officers need to live in the community. There's no way they can effectively work with the community if they don't live there. They have to live there and know what's going on, so I believe that's very important. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much to all of the candidates and all of you for coming out. Thank you to the Pinhook for having us. It's tremendously inspiring to see this kind of motivated, involved citizenry. By all means, give yourself a round of applause. Pigeonhole, talk to these folks on the way out. I want to leave you with two other things. First of all, thank you to Heather Cook, Justin Laidlaw, Meredith Martindale, all of our sponsors. Alex Manis running the live stream. Thank you so much. I want to leave you with two other things. One, the Clarion Content is supported by the community. We are grateful for your support. We will never put the content behind a paywall. And anytime you want to help support these kind of things, you want to help support our YouTube show, you want to help support independent medium and journalism in Durham, by all means, please give us your support and we will continue to put it out there. Two, a thing that I frequently hear on Saturdays, and it's a hard thing to do, but it's one of the things that makes Durham very special. I like to tell people one of the best things about this community is we do not have the traditional 6 degrees of separation. We have something more like 3. And the way that makes us special is very unique. We get many of the benefits of world culture while at the same time being a village. How does that happen? You need to introduce yourself to someone you do not know before you leave tonight. That is a hard thing to do, to just walk up to a stranger at a political rally or a political moment. But if you can do it, you will make the community smaller and better, and we will see you again October 27th to talk affordable housing at Ponysaurus Brewing. Thank you all for coming.